U.S. Northcom continues their recovery operations in support of the recent takedown of the Chinese high-altitude surveillance balloon. As of today, recovery operations of the balloon and the payload continue without issue. We are aware that there have been 4 previous balloons that have gone over U.S. territory. This is what we assess as part of a larger Chinese surveillance balloon program. You've heard us talk in the past about the fact that this is a program that's been operated for several years. What we do know is that in some cases, whereas some of these balloons previously had not been identified, subsequent intelligence analysis did enable us to indicate that these were Chinese balloons. In terms of where they're coming from, I can't go into the specific location other than to say China. And the last thing I'll say is that this last week provided the United States with a unique opportunity to learn a lot more about the Chinese surveillance balloon program, all information that will help us to continue to strengthen our ability to track these kinds of objects. And I'm not going to go over specifically what they tracked, other than what we've acknowledged publicly, that we know that they were looking to surveil strategic sites, to include some of our strategic bases in the continental United States. And so when you look at the scope of this program and the fact that we know that these balloons have been spotted in what we now can subsequently assess to be Chinese balloons operating over at least 5 continents in regions like Latin America, South America, Southeast Asia, East Asia, and Europe, again, it demonstrates why, for the Department of Defense, that China remains the pacing challenge and something that we'll continue to stay focused on. In terms of when we started tracking this, again, I'm not going to get into those kinds of specifics other than to say we did see it approaching U.S. airspace. NORAD, Northcom tracked it for the duration. Again, as it entered U.S. airspace, NORAD determined that it did not pose a physical or military threat, and in accordance with their procedures, monitored it. When it did come over the continental United States, we began to develop options on how to take it down and address this threat, with the idea being that we wanted to wait until it was over water so that we could mitigate any potential civilian harm or property damage. And importantly, as I highlighted, use this as an opportunity to, again, better understand the Chinese surveillance balloon program and apply that information to increase our ability to track these kinds of objects. Thanks. What they're monitoring and what their flight paths are going to be, I'm not going to go into that level of information. But needless to say, again, it calls into question why China, the PRC, feel that it's okay to violate sovereign airspace of nations in a way that is inappropriate and unacceptable. Again, I'm not going to talk about their flight paths other than they were over continental United States.
Were they over what you would call sensitive sites?
Again, I'm not going to. They were over sites that would be of interest to the Chinese, but I'm not going to go into the specifics, David.